Assalamualaikum and greeting to Dr. Karimiza Samsudin. We are from Group 5. We're going to present our group project for fire risk assessment at hostel. First of all, let me introduce our group members. We have Hanan Najiha, Siti Aina Nadira, Siti Zulaika, Nur Shafika, Nik Nur Shazanani, and I, Siti Aisyah. This is our table of contents. We start with introduction, executive summary, risk register, type of hazard, control measure, appendix, and lastly, reference. Let's move to the introduction. The location that we choose for our project is at hostel. The hostel is an institutional building located at campus Kesihatan University Sains Malaysia, Jalan Raja Perempuan Zainab 2, Kubang Krian 16150, Kota Baharu, Kelantan. The purpose of this fire risk assessment report is to determine the adequacy of the fire precaution. Fire safety is only one of many concerns that management must address to reduce the risk of harm or death to employees or the public. Unlike most other safety problems, the fire could hurt or kill a significant number of people in a short period of time. Considering the nature of the building structure, there are four buildings covered in DM1, DM2, DM3, and DM4. It is inhabitant and the fire protection and procedural measure seen during the risk assessment, it is determined that the threat from the fire is low. The most common causes of fire are faulty electrical equipment or misplaced readily flammable item on the numerous heating appliances located throughout the structure. Any such fire is predicted to develop at a medium or higher level and to produce a substantial amount of smoke. Every employer and student in all building structure have a responsibility to know the fire safety plan and to know what they will be expected to do in the event of emergency. This process involves a risk register, a risk matrix, etc.
I will continue my part about executive summary. Purpose to identify the risk of the fire hazard of the building require technical knowledge and experience to correctly identify and evaluate the risk. There are two types of hazards on the risk register that are considered a medium risk if they appear at the hostel, which are walking to toilet and overheating appliance. When conducting this fire risk assessment, we also identify other hazards which are unsafe condition of roof frame, overflowing rubbish, uneven ground surface, leaking on toilet causing water pooling on the ground, and the last one, ceiling tiles that are not securely attached.
So this is our work activity on the risk register. First is uses of electrical equipment. Second, walking to toilet. Third, cleaning toilet area. Fourth, harassment, violence and bullying. Fifth, cleaning equipment. Sixth, overheating appliance. And lastly is smoke detector not functioning well.
Now I will continue in detail to explain about our risk register by doing after we doing the inspection in the hostel. There are seven work activities that we found. First is use of electrical equipment. The hazard is burn hazard, electric shock, and fire hazard. It will cause the electrocution, electric burn, and property damage. The risk control is by doing the good housekeeping and use fire extinguisher. The probability is 2 and the severity is 2. So the risk is equal to 4. Second work activity is walking to the toilet. The hazard is slip, trips, and falls. It can lead to the personal injury of students. The risk control that we can use is by using the good housekeeping and make sure the way to the toilet is clear from any obstruction like material or any rubbish. The probability is this work activity is 3 and the severity is 2, so the risk is equal to 9. Next, the work activity is cleaning toilet area. The hazard is slip, trips, and falls. And the second hazard is contact with bleach or washing material. It can cause personal injury and also can cause skin irritation. The risk control is by uh, apply the good housekeeping and show the warning sign during cleaning at the place. The probability is 2 and the severity is 2, so the risk is equal to 4. The control measure that we can apply is by wearing proper personal protective equipment (PPE).
Hi, I'm Shafika. So I will continue the rest of the risk register. First is harassment and bullying and violence, which is can cause hazard in sexual harassment, bullying or harassing student with verbal abuse. And it can cause effect ill health and low moral. So the risk control is established the Rakan Siswa Club. The probability to happen is 2 and the severity is 2. So the total risk is 4. The fit risk register is cleaning equipment. The hazard that can cause is contact with the bleach or the washing material, which can cause skin irritation or corrosive. To control is change to the eco-friendly cleaning supplies, and the probability it happen is 3, then its severity is 1, so the risk is 3. So, six, overheating appears, which is can cause fire hazards and electrical hazard, and can cause effect in fire explosion and electrical spark. So the existing risk counter is frequently maintained, and the probability to happen is 2 and the severity is 4. So the risk is 8. So the recommendation to control this measure is gas cylinder are at least 3 meter away from the ignition sources. So the lastly register is smoke detector, which is can cause fire hazard and effect on collect from the smoke inhalation. Existing risk control is frequently inspection. Probability 1, severity 2, and the risk is 2. So that's all for our risk. So the first of type of hazard that we found is unsafe condition of roof frame. As we can see in this picture, this hazard are categorized as physical hazard and the location is at level 2 DM2, and it will expose to the student public, which is can impact causes serious or minor injury and may trouble many people and impact the reputation of the university. So to control this hazard is put signage caution to the area and maintenance for remove the roof frame.
The other types of hazard that we found when doing this assessment is overflowing of rubbish. It is under the category biological hazard, and we found the overflowing of rubbish near the ground floor at the hostel. It is exposed to the hotel resident and can create bad impact to them. The impact is from food waste that attract germs, flies, rodents, and pests, which multiply and pollute the environment with their feces and droppings. It can spread foodborne disease and pose a public nuisance. But we can control this hazard by put 2 or more pieces of garbage in there, and cleaner must pick up the trash every day.
Third is uneven ground surface, known as slip, trip, and fall hazard. The location that we found at Brick Walkway between Hostel Morni 2 and Morni 4. This hazard exposure to hostel resident, passenger, and public. The impact is uneven sidewalk stone that are buckling and protruding upwards can easily cause trip over and fall, especially when passengers are walking while talking. The control that can be taken is maintenance should take action to improve pedestrian.
Beside other types of hazard that we found when conducting the fire risk assessment is leaking from the toilet, which causing water pooling on the ground. This hazard is categorized as slip, trip, and fall, and it is located at the first floor DM3. This hazard will give exposure to the hotel resident, and it is also will give the impact to the hotel resident, which is difficult to walk on the floor, which potentially result in minor injuries such as bruises, sprain, or severe injuries such as head concussion or hip fracture. The way we can control this hazard is the cleaner should put a foot mat in front of the toilet, or the student cannot leave the toilet while soaking wet.
Lastly, we found the ceiling tiles that are not securely attached as impact hazard at level 3 DM2. This hazard will be exposure to hostel residents. The impact of the hazard which can fall on students who are below them at any time and that student will be injured. The control that can do is the maintenance should take action like screwing the ceiling tiles properly.
For pack control and measure to minimize risk, Appendix 1 shows PAD-01 potential of fire ignition as well as the activity required to ensure the safety of those who use a facility. Ignition causes a release of flammable liquid or gas to become a fire or explosion. There are many possible ignition sources, most likely depend on the release scenario. Source of ignition include electric spark, static electricity, neck flame or hot space, impact, friction actually. Because ignition likelihood is a primary input of fire and explosion, we may enhance our knowledge of ignition source within the sector as a control strategy. A primary technique for prevent fire is to remove one or more source of heat, oxygen or
So this is the PET 04, which is potential and equipment system. So the maintenance and management is the critical issue that must be avoided and improved. This because even if the building complies with and meet all fire regulation and code, if it does not maintain all the fire equipment, no fire can be prevented. For example, if a fire breaks out in the building and the student want to use fire extinguisher or fire hose to cut off the fire, but the fire equipment does not work or in a poor condition, this situation can be more difficult not only for students, but it also including the building if the fire start to spread. So to prevent it, we need to schedule regular maintenance survey for all the fire protection equipment to ensure compliance. For example, of fire maintenance is check fire alarm, smoke detector, and emergency light for 6 times a year, and annual inspection of fire hoses and fire hydrant and extinguishing too. Third, as needed for exit and escape route, and lastly, as is customary for fire drills.
Next is PAD-05, which is potential of fire spread. So how can fire spread occur? Fire spread can occur within buildings and between buildings when a combustion material in one area ignites and the fire eventually spread to an adjoining area. In this PAD, we focus on the fire barrier. A fire barrier is designed to restrict the spread of fire across the assembly. And the failure and bad condition of fire barrier can be hazardous since it can exacerbate the fire's progress. Therefore, it is essential to inspect and undertake corrective action on a fire barrier to maximize its reliability and ensure it continues to meet the requirement of the relevant design and commissioning procedures. The maintenance and the inspection must be carried out by the qualified person. Fire barrier should be expected when daily when the building is in use for crowd occupancy and for all building when building work is occurring that may affect a fire separation. Secondly, 6 months for crowd occupancy when not in use. Thirdly, monthly and annually for all other occupancy. And lastly, after any work has been carried out on the building.
Besides, for PAD 07, which potential of building evacuation. Building evacuation is important because it helps to get people away efficiently and safely from area where there is imminent threat, ongoing threat, or hazard to life or property. It is recommended all students present and on the first day of orientation, the dormitory management needs to carry out evacuation and emergency drills frequently to avoid the loss of many lives in the event of a fire. Also, management must provide adequate ventilation in the area as a control measure for the potential toxicity and opacity of the combustion products in the building in case of fire.
Based on potential of fire damage, we focus on protection to fire exposure. Fire exposure resulting from another fire outside the building, structure and vehicle, or a fire that extends to an outside property from a building, structure or vehicle. The most important thing is to protect students in the building, like in their hostel, from fire exposure and fire hazard by providing evacuation routes. There are 3 evacuation routes that will lead students to safety, such as exit access, exit, and exit discharge. When a fire occurs, there are control measures in place to keep people from becoming trapped inside the building. The exit route or exit access, such as the fire door, must be unobstructed and clear of from any material or equipment, as well as unlocked to avoid causing delay and panic among those inside the building. When doing this assessment, we found that the fire door is locked by padlock at the in the one of hostel. This is something that we need to avoid. Next, students need to train in the details of fire protection. Students must train in detail um, in the emergency preparedness training that includes the overview of different types of emergency that occur to ensure the student know how to reaction if a fire occurs. Next, students need to be aware of the hostel emergency plan. Uh, Students need to train how to use the evacuation routes and to know the other location that's safe from fire before escape. The simple action before evacuation to another compartment is they can fill the fire door with their hands before opening it. If the door is hot, they should not open it to avoid any harmful to them.
PAD-08 Potential of Emergency Response. From the Appendix 1, emergency response management is a serious problem that needs to be fixed to avoid fatalities, injuries, and lessens damage to structures, stock, and equipment. It is also aims to hasten the return to normal operation while safeguarding the people and the environment. Inadequate crisis management will lead to far longer recovery times, which will directly affect downtime and lost revenue. Accidents occur without warning, accidentally or by chance. An incident is an occurrence or event that is typically brought on by several different reasons. Several possible reasons of event include, for example, poor choice of risk controls, poor maintenance and equipment, and insufficient supervision that may harm the students at the hostel if any emergency occurs, such as fire. It is recommended that any emergency planning committee be established, comprised of trained individuals stationed on each floor of the structure or situated in a manner that is consistent with the design of the building and comprise as many tenants as is necessary. Representative from the field of health and safety should be on the emergency planning committee as well as other individuals as necessary, such as the floor warden, chief warden, and first aid officer. The management of the hostel should always inform the student about the emergency plan, mutual aid agreements, memorandum of understanding, training for students, conducting disaster exercise to reinforce training and test capabilities, and presenting all hazard education campaigns to prevent undesirable things from happening to students there.
So, is there still a possible risk after all these countermeasures? The answer is yes. There is still risk because risk cannot be eliminated, but the risk can be reduced by following all the requirements and obeying all the rules to minimize the risk as much as possible.
Moving on to the conclusion, fire risk assessment is an organized and thorough examination of the premises, the activities within the premises, the possibility of fire occurring on the premises, and the possible harm it could do to the persons in and around the premises. Overall, all the hazard found has been given the right and effective measure contour to reduce the likelihood of the risk of exposure to that hazard being released. And at the end of the process, the hostel should be safe for its occupant. And lastly, the company should hire our team because we were able to identify the necessary risk and control measure. And in addition, we also give our 100% effort to do the fire risk assessment.
Let's see our appendix. This is our calculation fire risk assessment probability.